We're here back on the podcast. Andreas Pettersson is here from leadersadapt.com, and Andreas is an accomplished executive leader. He has over 16 years of international experience in the technology sector, but he has transitioned from the corporate world to coaching or also coaching and mentoring leaders as the founder and CEO of Leaders Adapt, where he helps fearless leaders and entrepreneurs navigate the journey from 7 to 8 figures while true to themselves. We all need help with this sort of thing, right? With the ever-evolving identity crisis and becoming a better person, getting to your inner self while also making money, helping others, growing a company, having happiness, fulfillment, success. It's a tall order, but Andreas is here to help you. So Andreas, we introduced you with your bio, a little bit, hype people up, but what did I leave out? What is your current focus and passion? What should we know about you just right off the bat?
So first of all, I want to hire you to be my person that introduced me for everything. Think about having you walking into a meeting and you hype me up that way. So I like that.
I'll be your MC. Yes.
I think you captured most of it. Sometimes I also introduce myself as the software engineer that went over to the dark side and focused more on business leadership and strategy. But I don't want to pigeonhole myself too much as an engineer. But thank you so much for having me, Robert.
You're very welcome. And, what you just mentioned there of kind of like getting to that next leadership level, I came across this idea when I was like 18, 19. I don't know about you, but you get into computers, software, you have a lot of fun being the script kiddie, being the code monkey, making the software. And that's good if you're a young buck. But then they say, once you're in a corporate job or you build a business, eventually you have to grow up, you have to rise above it. You have to architect, abstract, do the leadership stuff. And so did that kind of similar journey happen for you? Or did you think about that, like just the evolution from you start off as a grunt doing the work, but then eventually you have to delegate others to do the work?
Very good way of putting it. So I would say that, first of all, both a bachelor and a master degree in software engineering. I worked for maybe 3 to 6 months before someone said, you need to lead a team of other people doing this. And the main reason was that while I took my software degrees, I worked as a waiter. And what is a waiter really good at? Managing crisis and really understand what the customers want and giving them a good customer experience. So after working for just a few months, and we were having some issues with a specific large customer, I don't want to say their names, it's many years ago, but still a very large customer. And we were in a meeting with them, and the customer kept complaining about things we were doing. And I was just brought in because it just happened to be in the area of the code where I had been working. I managed to handle that customer interaction so well that the person that I was reporting to basically pulled me out directly after and it's like, okay, you can't sit here and code anymore. I need to put you into product management. So that's how my journey started. And then I had a career where I grew it very fast. I went from the bottom to the top of the pyramid fairly fast. There were 3 reasons. I didn't give an F about politics, and everyone else were doing politics. I always focused on how do we add value to the customers. And third is radical candor. I always said what I was thinking, and a lot of other people, they were constantly they weren't speaking the truth, or they were only telling things that was better for them instead of just the brutal, honest truth.
I love it. Well, you've given us a lot to think about here, especially with the leadership and the emotional intelligence of it all. And basically, it seems like in your story, you're so good that they can't ignore you. And it's interesting to think about because it's like, well, you want to be a good person, do the right thing, come up with solutions. And then it seems like there's almost like 3 tiers, right? There's like the bottom tier where you're like unaware of all the socialness happening around you, right? And you just say, I'm always losing in any kind of an argument, fight, interaction. People are running circles around me. And then there's the middle tier where maybe like you're playing their game, you're just as nasty as them. And then there's like what you figured out, which is like how to run circles around them. And so were there any missteps along the way? Because it's like, I feel like, none of us are perfect, right? But especially the past 2 years or so, this has been on my mind on a daily basis. When people talk about like leadership and stuff like that, I always would hear all these keywords and they seem meaningless to me. But then after a while, somehow it clicked, just this idea of like, hey, if some, like you said, if some customer is like having an attitude, like don't meet them there. Just like figure out a solution or figure out how to handle them. And maybe once you get more mature in the years, you've come up with, you've seen enough of the use cases to then say, hey, I've seen this is problem number 4. I'll apply strategy number 7. So how do you, like, I guess in a way, like win the game in the way that everybody wins without playing their game, without resorting to their tactics? I mean, it seems like a tall order.
My number one advice to everyone out there who really don't like politics: calm your emotion, be direct, be open, and then always, as soon as you get the emotional trigger, someone is attacking you and you feel like I want to punch back, you always think, what if the opposite is true? And try to put yourself in their shoes. Why are they choosing to react the way they do? If you stop thinking about who you are and why you're reacting the way you are, and you focus on them first, you usually find a solution forward. Then you get known for the person who always keeps your calm, who always speaks the truth, who is always direct. And guess what? Executives, C-levels, that's the number one thing. Because like you said, on a director level, it's all about learning to lead other, or basically, I'll reproxy it the steps, but basically director level, you're learning to lead a team. Vice president level, you're learning to lead other leaders, but you have to sometimes play the political game. C-level, you don't have to play the political game anymore. It is what it is, radical candor, directness, but you have to start getting in control of your own emotional state at a C-level, because a C-level that loses their shit in front of people will never be respected.
And when you see that happening in any kind of situation, right? You see like someone who runs a company who's immature, or like you mentioned, like politics in a general sense, but like an actual like government politician, when someone in power doesn't have a handle on their emotions, you think like, I don't know, should they really be given that responsibility, right? If you can't handle your emotions, fine, but don't be in charge of others where you can do some kind of damage. And so it's reassuring when it's like, okay, this person knows what they're doing, but they're also in control of themselves. It's like when you can't even manage yourself, how can you manage to deal with other people? And so this idea that you mentioned here of like people pay lip service to empathy, but that technique you mentioned, I only heard it put that way like very recently. Like if you're doing a negotiation and you're like, hey, I want this and I want this in response, we'll reverse it and say like, what if they asked you that of you and you were to respond, and it starts to hurt your brain, because then you say like, okay, what if the opposite is true? And like if you flip it, I guess it makes you see those different perspectives. And in this evolution of kind of being a calmer person who has empathy, I've always been impressed, and I've tried to role model people who can really let things go, right? Like you're dealing with someone else and they freak out, or they say something you don't like, and sometimes things can kind of stick or they're hard to let go. And have you struggled with that, or do you have any techniques on the sorting of it, right? Because sometimes there's things that are said that are just not helpful, irrelevant, but then you don't want to like let everything go, because maybe if they said something good that will help solve the problem, like I want to latch onto that. So do these thoughts come in your mind as far as sorting the helpful and the unhelpful?
Yeah, so I'll answer. First, I would just want to make a comment on the other thing you said, and then I'll answer your question. I think it's extremely important whenever you sit in a situation and you feel your emotions starting to be triggered. Think of it like this: everything is actually a negotiation. Every interaction in a company is more or less a negotiation on responsibility and authority, and who ends up doing the work versus who gets to say to who does the work. So your brain naturally reacts that way. And I just want to say one more thing there, and that is your brain, your ultimate role of your brain is survival, right? So all the nerve impulses will first go through your body into your mind and will cross the part of your brain that is related to an emotional response, because it's fight or flight. By thinking, what if the opposite is true? You kind of bypass that part of the brain to the frontal cortex, and now you have to think logically and put yourself in someone else's shoes. And just by saying those words as a mantra, you actually calm yourself down. What you were saying, what was the question again? The second question was, what I do to let go of grudges or bad situations. So
Yeah.
first of all, one of the things I always teach people when I'm working with them is listen for the positive. You need to rewire your brain to listen for the positives and the confirmations. Every time someone gives you feedback, I ask them to write it down on a post-it note. And then every single morning, they read all the positive things that were said about them. And in the end of the day, they reflect on how that played a part of their day. That is a great way to get the brain to start noticing the positive things instead of the negatives. Now, in the negatives, I believe everything is relative. So I play a game. If someone really hurt my feelings, it actually happened earlier this week. Someone actually hurt my feelings. And at the same time, and we can go into a very sad topic here, but a friend of mine died recently. And but I've experienced death prior in my life as well. What I'm trying to say is I always put it relative to that. So sometimes, and it sounds stupid, if something bad happens, what is it relative to what I'm actually have gone through previously in my life? And I almost try to quantify it and put a number on it. And by just doing that exercise for 2 seconds, my brain usually goes, oh, you're being ridiculous. Why are you choosing to feel the way you are for this situation relative to what actually is happening in your life right now or happened in the past? And as soon as you convert it into an emotional part to the logical part, now you're in control of the emotion. You're not in control of it unless you try to make it a logical thinking.
I think you're on some kind of life-changing philosophy. I feel like you need to create a TED Talk about some of this. So I love what you said here, and especially after this podcast, I need to go out to the store and buy some of those bright colored Post-it notes. I love how they're bright color, just to override. Yeah. Oh, and you have multiple colors. I mean, now you're speaking my
For
language.
different things. Like I capture my
Ooh.
positives, obviously on the green ones. On the green ones, and I have one for different businesses and different things I do. And I look like internal sunshine of a spotless mind here, craziness. But I have post-its everywhere. But the power of capturing the positive things, Robert, and then reading them out loud every single morning, you stop hearing the negatives. The negatives just fade away. The other thing I would obviously say to every leader out there, sleep on it. Never do things in anger. As soon as you have an emotion, think, why am I feeling the way I do? I'm also big on, I love Stoicism as a philosophy. There is a great book written called How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. That one really helps mindset for a lot of executives because, again, everything is relative and everything is how you train your brain. But yeah, go get post-its. Post-its can be used for anything. They can also be used for covering meetings you don't want to see on your calendar. You just stick them on the screen.
Yeah, and that's a choice that your logical mind makes. So you think about there's always this the war happening in your mind, right? There's the logic and the emotion. And if you're a caveman living in 6000 BC, emotions are most of your life. Emotions drive everything because you should be afraid of the tiger. But if you're the Roman emperor and you have to like run this tier of management and that tier of management, it requires a lot of abstract thinking. And if you apply too much emotion to like a complex problem, then bad things will happen. And so it seems like we need to override the emotion and let the logic kind of take the driver's seat. Emotions can be useful, but so many times like it's running outdated software and they backfire on us. And so I love just kind of the attempts at organizing the messy. And I think that might transition us into another cool subject. You said that you're a dad of an autistic son. We're both in the Autistic Son Club. I have a 4-year-old. He's non-speaking, but I'm always like thinking like, okay, what is he like? What does he respond to? And then what do we really need to like work on a lot, like the speech therapy? And so I'm really curious, like, what is your situation like? What do you have to say about your autistic child and what you learned from him?
So I'm going to use the bridge here on the emotional regulation. And by the way, it's you can blow up and be mad if you want to. End of the day, I reflect on all my emotions I went through the day. But you have to be able to show up as an executive for meeting after meeting after meeting, always coming in with a fresh mind, positive attitude. To my autistic son, he has been the best leadership mentor coach I could ever wish for. He was diagnosed when he was 3. He is today 10. He has gone from the most restrictive, not speaking, or he was saying a few words, but it's like really hard to communicate. A lot of anger problems. To today, he's in a general education. with a 101.8. He's keeping up logically. And what I have to say to any parents, you including Robert, there's hope. Like, just keep working on it, and think whenever you're having bad days and you are struggling, just think one day they might not be there. They might not live with you. And you get to experience all these things. And then always look for, like, what can I learn from this situation? When my son was self-injuring a little bit when he was younger, what can I learn from this? And how can we go from reactive to proactive, for example? So what I have learned in any situation now is, instead of letting things escalate, like, look for the small signs and then de-escalate as quickly as possible. I do it in the workforce, I do it with friends, I do it in any situation. Or if I don't want to de-escalate it, what are the consequences if I choose to accelerate a certain behavior? Because a big thing with, for example, ABA, for autistic children therapy, is that you have to trigger them in order for them to teach them the coping mechanisms to find another outcome in their pattern.
That is huge. That is powerful. I love this branching paths idea, and just the gratitude rearing its head again, right? These ideas of, what do I get to do and how can I learn from this? And then built into that is, what's good about this and how can I appreciate the finite time in the situation or with this person, because once it's gone, and I'll miss in the future, I'll miss the present. I'll miss what the good old days used to be like. And so, man, some profound ideas here. You told us about business and about life. And right before we recorded, you told me this interesting idea about when you coach leaders of all kinds, and when they say, well, here's my identity or here's my problem, you kind of can run around that and say, well, hey, you think this and you're coming from this position, but it's really from the outside perspective, it's different. And so can you help us understand that? Like, how does it work as far as the magic you work on people?
If people knew the answer to the problem they were having, they wouldn't need an advisor, a coach, a mentor. Or they just know the answer and they don't have the guts to actually make the right decision to move forward. But I will repeat, like, every time someone comes to me, they say, I have an issue with my product, or I have this one department, it's not working, or I have this partner and I think they need leadership training. Do you do training for other people? And it's almost every single time, what they have identified to be the problem is just a symptom, not the root cause. I often have to work with the person I'm working with, or I have to work with them for at least 2 to 6 weeks of them truly understanding why they're perceiving a certain situation, why they choose to do certain decisions and certain outcomes first. When we have done that, then we look at action and, like, what changes needs to be happening right now. Then they make the actions with the awareness of themselves, not just let's just make changes, because then they're going to put up the same problem again and again and again. So I'm very focused on what's the root cause. When we figure that out, we figured out who they are, then we make the changes. And so many times clients go, oh, it's like the fog lifted. I finally understood, or I'm hyper aware now of what's going on in my business, or I should have fired this person 10 years ago, or, like, these are the type of comments I hear on a weekly basis. And I don't have all the answers. When I was a CEO and I worked I reported all the way up to the top of the top guy at Canon before we merged the company. And I can tell you this, the amount of leadership training I've been getting over the years, I have had business coaches, leadership psychologists, just strategy mentors, mindset mentors. And I can tell you, I did not find all the answers myself. The number one thing that will define if you're a successful entrepreneur or a successful executive is your level of curiosity. If you're not open to change, if you say you are who you are, you can just as well give up. If you're curious of understanding yourself and curious of truly solving the problem, then you should go seek help from someone else that have already done it, that have already built companies and scaled it. But I would also say the opposite. There are so many coaches and mentors out there that just suck. They're amazing at sales and marketing, but they have never walked the walk themselves. They have never been CEO. they should not be telling CEOs what to do.
Okay, well, this is good life advice, and I just we're living in this information age, right? Where like anything can be Googled, you can ask the AI all kinds of questions, but that only gets you so far, doesn't it? Like it's good to be when you think about curiosity, it's like, well, it's good to research, it's good to read, but then at a certain point, you need these relationships, you need these coaches and mentors to be running a different program than we ourselves are running, right? You said that, well, you have your own way of thinking and that's gotten you these outputs, but it's like using the chat GPT from 5 years ago versus the modern day one, right? It's like you're stuck because you can only get so far. So you need your support system, you need your team. And as far as where you come in and the people you help, how does someone know if they're a good fit for you and your amazing ideas and techniques? How do they know if they're a fit? And if they are, what kind of action should they take?
So they should go to my website, leadersadapt.com, or they should go follow me on Instagram or another social media. Reach out, DM me directly. I have a waiting list right now because I took on too many clients and I couldn't give the right service that I wanted to give. So I scaled it back a little bit. With that said, coming in here to February, I have a few people that are graduating from the 4 to 6 months I work with them. They should start a conversation. I will do a first long discussion with people, usually take an hour and a half, because I want to make sure there's a culture fit both ways. If you can't handle brutal, direct honesty or just my perception of things, you don't want to work with me. I don't sugarcoat shit. It is what it is. Take it or leave it. If you can't handle it, I can't work with you. If I get someone who doesn't take action on the things we talk about, if you can't basically deliver on the commitment you make to yourself, don't waste my time. But then what I do is I usually fly out and I sit a full day with someone, and then I make up the choice if I'm going to work with them or not. Now, with that said, I do start the engagement prior to that from a financial perspective, but I say, I give you your money back if I feel like I can't work with you. Life is long if you know how to use it. And so many people choose to walk around saying life is short. And I think I don't want to be one of those people. Life is long if you know how to use it. So I'm very selective of who I work with. But yeah, reach out on social media. With that said, Robert, I do want to say one thing. I get a lot. I charge a premium for what I do because I know I get you the results. With that said, I want to help people. I really want to help people. So for the last few months, I started taking some of the practices I'm doing and I'm just dropping them for free. I usually put the link on my Instagram. So when you were talking about ChatGPT, I've actually been using how you can learn more about your leadership profile using ChatGPT. And I created this 12 steps to finding your North Star document. Again, you can get it free off my Instagram. In there, I'm like, go take these personality assessments, upload them to these AI tools, prompt them the following way, describe your problem, describe your core values, and it will most likely spit out something that is pretty good for you so that you can start working with right away without working with me, basically. And I've seen a lot of people download that one. And my pledge is like, I want to keep releasing free things because my mission is to help 10,000 entrepreneurs before I stop doing this. And I won't get to 10,000 if I only do one-on-one coaching. So then I didn't have the energy to do group coaching at this point. So I'm just like, here, take these, use these methods and these tools instead.
I love it. Well, you're definitely on an amazing path, a trajectory. And you always think about that business model of saying, well, here's the service I want to provide. And I'm, you get on podcasts and you say, here's who I can help, but it's maybe like probably less than 1% of the listenership. And so how do you help the other 99+%? Well, some kind of lead magnet. And what do? Well, do I make a boring PDF or a checklist? Like that's 5 years ago stuff. And so this is amazing. You say, here's how to guide ChatGPT, do this personality test, get me the real solution. And because like the little times I've done that when I gave it like a ton of my writing, I'm like, give me 25 attributes about my writing. It's kind of fun, right? To learn about yourself and say, hey, I didn't even see myself that way. Is that how others see me? Well, maybe. And so do I like that? Do I do more of that? Do I kind of change my appearance? Do I get that dreaded word alignment? And so that can help us to do that. And so you said that's on your Instagram, Andreas the CEO, to get that freebie?
Correct. And you can just click it. I do ask for emails. I won't spam you, but it's actually, I've been collecting emails for a year and I haven't even sent an email once.
Oh,
but
no.
but I'm collecting it for the. I haven't had the need to, but I'm collecting it for the future. Over time, I want to do more things that reach a larger audience. I'm just really enjoying myself right now, and I don't see the need for it. But with that said, I also don't want it to just fly around everywhere. And I also have like lead magnets where I have a store where I put a ton of guides and other things, but everything is free. Like I don't want to have people pay for the basics. Most leaders are what I call insecure overachievers, and they don't have imposter syndrome. They're just insecure in their execution ability, but they're still overachievers. So they burn so hard. And I've been trying to help that specific avatar and persona, people that know they can do better, but they need to understand who they truly are in any leadership position. And that's sort of who I've been writing to when I've been doing a lot of these different things. And some of the writings is literally how I coach people or advise people the first 2 to 6 weeks. And I just started putting it into documents and giving it out. And I've had several people reach out and asking me like, can you make a version 2 of this? How do I expand this specific step? It's coming. I haven't had time to do it yet. It's coming. And then the other thing I'm trying to do to sort of give back, I'm kind of announcing it here now. I haven't even done any marketing on anything on this. The people reach out and say, how do I find a mentor? How do I find a mentee? And I'm trying to figure out if I can do some free matchmaking community where I don't coach and mentor people, but I can find other leaders who want to give back. And hopefully we can find ambitious people that they can work with free of charge, or if they want to charge, like fine. But my idea is to match people for free, because then I also think I can help a lot more people with limited efforts.
And I imagine that might tickle your software tendencies, right? Because now you're getting back to the UI and the algorithm with the matching, and that can be a lot of fun. And so I always have massive respect for someone who can be on a podcast and iterate with their ideas and allow them to get beat up. And I think you're definitely onto something when you have people asking you to improve your own lead magnet. Even someone looking at your lead magnet is an accomplishment. And so you have a lot of amazing things going on. Andreas, the CEO, on social media, especially Instagram. You said leadersadapt.com. I feel like I have to go back and re-listen to our recording like 2 or 3 times and run it through ChatGPT and get summarized and things like that, because you dropped a lot of great knowledge bombs. But it's the point of this show, the very end, Andreas, where I'm here to stump you, put you on the spot a little bit. Before we say goodbye, I like to ask my guests around this time about a fun or interesting or helpful quote or lesson that has assisted them in life and business that they want to pass on to us. So what comes to mind as far as a quote or lesson to pass on to us?
The brain dies twice. The first time is when you say you are who you are and you're not curious anymore and you're not willing to change. The second time is when your heart stops beating. The most happy people try to time those two in the same second.
I love it. Very good. So we make the most of your life, right? And don't give up too soon. Accomplish amazing things and don't go it alone. So with the help of yourself or other coaches, because there's plenty of fish in the sea, ask for help if you need it. Don't get stuck. Don't get trapped in your own thinking. Avoid the self-sabotage, self-limiting, negative self-talk. We don't want that. We want to encourage ourselves, be kind to ourselves, help others, be great leaders. And the very next step after listening to this conversation to do that, step 1, go on your favorite social platform of choice and type in the search box AndreasTheCEO.com, Andreas the CEO, especially Instagram. Add him, find that lead magnet, find that freebie, and then go to leadersadapt.com. It's a beautiful website, amazing branding and colors. I think even the colors like match your background behind you in some way. And you'll learn a lot. There's a lot of great content. And Andreas has a lot of business and life figured out. We're all learning, but he's definitely someone that you can and should learn from. leadersadapt.com. Andreas, wonderful speaking with you today.
Thank you so much for having me.